Hi, everyone. Thank you so much
Hi.
for being here. Thank you to our
Hello.
amazing moderators, Stephen and Caroline, for the opportunity. And then, of course, thank you, Nandini, Vinita, and Sonka, for taking the opportunity to be here.
Glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
Excited to be here.
Awesome. So I'm super excited to moderate this panel, which will be going from now about 6:25 until 7:10. This panel will be centered around getting started in entrepreneurship. So we'll be looking not only from the founder perspective, which is quite stereotypical, but also from the perspectives of everyone else involved in the entrepreneurship scene. So this will be perspectives from venture capitalists, investors, advisors, people that actually help create the technology, and more. Really excited to get started. And so I've prepared a few questions for us to go ahead and jump in. And the first one, it's quite basic, and it would be what really motivated you to enter the entrepreneurship space in the first place compared to more like conventional career paths?
I can start us off with that. So my name is Sonka. Nice to meet everybody. And I'm the co-founder and CEO of Alta, the no-code tool to build mobile applications. I would say that what really excited about entrepreneurship is after having worked in the corporate world for about 10 years, I was ready to really start something on my own. And I think that what's really exciting about entrepreneurship is that you're constantly learning. So you're always wearing different hats. You don't get bored. And although there's a lot of challenges where you have to teach yourself new skills such as sales or marketing or even like recruiting, things like that. It's just a very kind of exciting time to be an entrepreneur. I think that there's a lot of opportunities right now for folks around the world to have great ideas and then create new businesses and new tools, especially with such a huge growth of online commerce as well.
Yeah, adding to that, hi everyone, I'm Vinita Jain. I'm the Director of Product Management at Intel. Additionally, I and my husband have recently started an entrepreneurial journey of Decilia.com. So as far as the journey, entrepreneurship versus the conventional career path is concerned, the three pointers that I would like to share is, number one, like Sonka also mentioned, the excitement of creating the value through your own product is something that you get through your entrepreneurship, and the journey of taking things like from end to end, from the ground up, from when it is just an idea to a vision and then to a reality, all the ups and downs that you go through. Like there's always this adrenaline rush and the stories that you get on the way that you can pass on to people and share with your kids, grandkids. Third, but last but not least, like knowing that there is the all the upside that is all your own. We are in this exciting phase right now, and nothing but sky's the limit.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Vinita. Real quickly, before Nandini answers this question, I was wondering if you could provide us a bit more context onto the like entrepreneurial venture you and your husband, so sorry, have just started.
Yeah, sure. It's basically the Decilia.com, an e-commerce platform where we are envisioning to become the marketing and distribution leaders for the exotic brands, introducing and establishing them here in US.
Wow, that's awesome. I love to hear it. And then Nandini, please go ahead.
Sure. Firstly, may I just say what a grand initiative this is? I've been looking through the agenda and everything for the last couple of days. It's really impressive what you guys have been doing. So kudos to you for doing that in between studying. So I'm not an entrepreneur. My work is more around strategy. But what took me to this field is I found that I'm not really excited by routine work. So for the last 10 years or so, I have been working in strategy, and part of my job is to find those pockets of growth in otherwise saturated markets. So you can say that I kind of think like an entrepreneur, even though I'm not running my own business. Add to that, there is the complexity of a company like Hitachi Vantara, which has 900 companies under its umbrella. So, how do you balance the legacy business with creating something new? So, for example, we are a storage company, the area where I work in. So, on the one hand, we have the on-prem storage market where we dominate, especially in the high-end part of the market, and we have extremely loyal customers. But then the storage market, as you know, is undergoing a lot of change with the public cloud companies like AWS and GCP coming in. So there's this transition happening. So how do you ride that wave? So it's fun, but in a kind of different way.
Amazing. And so when you talk about strategy, are you more involved in laying out the long-term strategy and then of course having to pivot for each of these like obstacles that occur? Or do you focus more on like one specific part of strategy and figure out how to help that strategy sort of sustain itself throughout the course of your time with the company?
That's an excellent question because um, as any of you would know, if you're a public company, you're kind of at the tyranny of the quarterly earnings. So, whatever long term strategy you're building, you have to keep in mind that there's a quarter coming up and there are analysts and markets you have to answer to. So, part of my job is working with the stakeholders in laying out that long term view of what we will be doing maybe 10, 20, not 20 years, 10 years from now. But part of it is also looking at how can we improve our ongoing quarterly earnings so that we can fund those long-term initiatives because all of those would require a lot of investments. There are cash flow challenges, there are margin challenges, and as the entrepreneurs on the panel would tell you, you may have growth initially, you will likely not have margins and profits. So it's a balancing act, which gets a little more difficult when you have stakeholders like market and others to answer to.
Right, that totally makes sense. And actually ties well into the next question that I was going to ask, which is, usually entrepreneurship can seem super thrilling and novel to anyone not currently like in the space, but after they get over like the initial novelty, the first thing that usually enters people's mind is that there's a risk reward trade-off that entrepreneurs just inevitably face. And for some people, it can seem just really difficult to sort of commit to being an entrepreneur or working with any entrepreneurs in like adjacent fields, for example, such as strategy. So the next question would be, once all three of you decided to pivot into the current work you're doing with entrepreneurship, what were some of the unexpected drawbacks or challenges that you had to face?
Yeah, I can start with that one. So I think it was really interesting because I've worked at very large companies as well, including Capital One, Amazon, Zillow. And I think the benefit of working at such incredible companies is that there's so many resources. So people that are experts at marketing, at sales, at engineering. And so there's so many people that you can go to get help with, a problem or a new product launch or a new initiative. And so I think it was very challenging. I quit my job about a year ago. So, you leave the company, you're excited about your new idea, and you're ready to get started with a very small team. It was just me and my co-founder. And I think you're sitting at your desk by yourself and saying like, okay, now I have to make something out of, nothing. And so it's a little intimidating, but I think there's a lot of opportunity and excitement there because I've just learned so much in the past year. I didn't know how to fundraise a year ago. And so going through the process of raising our pre-seed round, talking to a lot of angel investors, venture capital firms, and then most recently, we are accepted into the AWS Impact Accelerator for Women Founders, which is been amazing. They selected about 25 companies out of a few thousand that applied, and they've been kind of teaching us ways to basically like grow our business and then also like approach investors. So giving us like both business and like technical mentorship. And so I think a lot of the challenges that I faced early on around fundraising or building or recruiting are things that either you can be taught by mentors that you have in your network, or even just by like trying and failing and then getting up and trying again. So I think that it's intimidating to kind of leave, something that's more stable and try something new. But I also think that, I didn't want to have any regrets later in life. So a lot of the motivation for me was that no matter what happens, I'm going to learn a lot and really stretch myself. And just be excited about the challenges and know that you can accomplish anything and really overcome them.
Congratulations on being accepted by AWS for like women founders. That's super exciting.
Thank you. It was a huge, exciting day for our team when we heard about it.
I definitely agree as well. I think having good mentors is like super key to helping the motivation like last over a long period of time versus sort of like die out once you overcome all of these challenges.
It's quite amazing, Sonka. Personally, for me, the biggest next challenge will be breaking off from the current well-paying job and to navigate this entrepreneurship that we have started as a full-time. So kudos to you to have done that. And so you're already there. And I'll come grab you for getting some inspiration and advice. Some of the learnings from our past entrepreneurial stunts that went into this new business for us in this area is basically identifying the paying customers from day one. So some of the past products, we invested heavily into developing the product early on, and then tried to search for the customers, which wasn't like the right time in the right place at that time. So, and my second advice would be like, don't invest too much upfront in product development. And so for this area, we have a product that is already like doing well in other locations, and we're starting with the product market fit here in US. So these are some of the learnings that I'm applying in this new endeavor. But definitely that big milestone is when I'll actually leave a well-paying or a protected protected charter to come take it.
I was going to say, like, we did work on our idea for a few months before we quit our full-time job. So I think doing those small tests, like you're saying, to validate that there is a market for your product, there's people who are willing to pay for your product, made us feel more confident to, be full-time.
So I think one of the biggest challenges for me when I went into strategy was because I had worked in IT consulting a little bit. I had worked in more process oriented and process engineering a little bit. I was a consultant for the first 10 years or so of my career. Firstly was learning the industry itself, because I went into tech strategy right out of Wharton, went into Hewlett Packard when it was still one company. So understanding the tech domain, especially because I don't have an engineering background, it's mostly finance that I've done. And then working with very little guidance, because when you're in strategy, it could be something as abstract as find some new markets for us. There is this new product we are developing, build a business case so that we can fund it more. So it is a mixture of the kind of fundraising that entrepreneurs typically do, but this time you're going to the board or to the CEO to get those funds. So you have to build a business case that is believable and you can back it up with assumptions, scenarios, etc. In terms of learnings, I would say the you have to be able to navigate a steep learning curve. At least for me, that was something. Understand the product, understand the market, the competitors, all of those things. And at the same time, how do you provide value to the whole lot of stakeholders that are there? So I work with the product management team, I work with the marketing team, and trying to bring all of it together in order to, whether it's building a business case or presenting to on their behalf to the board and the CEO. And it can be challenging, but it is also, I think it helps you learn faster because you don't have any other way out other than to learn and scale.
So it's very interesting that you mentioned a learning curve, Nandini, because it seems like one of the common aspects throughout all three of your answers was that usually there's just so much you have to learn. It's like try and fail, and get it back up again. And I'm wondering, what would your perspectives be? I guess it's a bit of a tangential question, but what would you say to some people who decide to open a business and just never plan on committing full time and leaving their job and just, having one job and then also having like an entrepreneurial venture on the side? Would you say that that seems sustainable, or would you perhaps say that in order to fully invest the time and effort and learn about the market, learn about product market fit, learn about your customers, you sort of like need to just be doing that full time?
I think it's difficult to do that for sure, but then Vinita's doing it and so successfully. So, I think you can always do it. I think what helps is you can probably bring some of the learnings from your job to your business, right? That is a huge advantage. And then um, obviously having that paycheck to fall back on, it helps a great deal till you scale your business. So I would say two things, till you get it to a scale where it can sustain you financially, it's probably better to do both, even though it's going to be very strenuous, financial, time wise and through everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it also depends on the type of the product or the business that you are in. Like not all business need you to be like 100% available or spend that much time or all initially. So like early on, getting those product market fit and etc. Like Sonka was saying, like getting the idea validated, sort of. You can do that while you have the other protected territory to fall back on. For me personally, I think of my Thunderbolt business at Intel as my first business, and then Desilia.com as my second business. And basically, the entrepreneurial mentality that nurtures both of them at the same time. So, like, I have the same passion when I'm driving the business for Thunderbolt at Intel, and then there are a lot of things that I learn in that process that kind of helps me on the weekends when I'm working on the Desilia.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with both of the comments so far. So when I first started working at Alta, it was kind of on nights and weekends and really validating the market and interviewing people and trying to understand, like, is this something that we could work on full time? And then I joined a community called Indie Hackers, which there are a lot of folks in that community who do work on their startups as a side project. So they're still able to, dedicate time, generate revenue, and then decide, is it like a full-time job type of business, or is it something that they can continue to run on the side? So I think it's really just like a personal decision and a personal journey. I think for me, it just became to a point where trying to juggle both was too challenging, and I wanted to, see what would happen. So I gave myself, a timeline to prove whether or not this would work, and then finally made the plunge. But I could also see, in another world or another scenario where if I could do both at the same time, it's something that, I would continue doing, because that does extend your runway. Because if you do, leave your full-time job and like focus on the startup full-time, then you only have so much time either to make enough sales to sustain your business or to raise enough funding so that you're able to get to the next level for your company.
Right, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And actually, it does tie into the next question I was going to ask, which is all three of you have completed your Masters of Business Administrations at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. And for any of the audience members that don't know, the MBA program at Wharton is known like around the world for its excellent business curriculum and training. And so I was wondering, when it comes to entrepreneurship, which many people tout as being the sort of field that doesn't really require any sort of expertise, that's quite accessible to anyone, as long as you just have an idea, you can just go from there. How would you sort of characterize the usefulness of like the knowledge you gained at business school when it comes to working within entrepreneurship? And so I know that earlier Nandini had mentioned she didn't know a lot about IT or engineering specifically, right? So that's the industry. But I would imagine getting an MBA would teach you quite a lot just about like the business that sort of is the foundation of operating any sort of entrepreneurial venture. So once again, the question would be like, what sort of motivated you to attend business school, and how useful do you think your experiences were when it comes to the work you do now?
So I think it's the best investment in myself I ever made. It was draining financially, emotionally, everywhere. And for 2 years, I did not have, a social life or so, because I was working and doing the Wharton course at the same time. But I wouldn't exchange it for anything else in the world. And I was so excited when I got in, because this was the only business school I had applied in. I already had an MBA from Manchester Business School in UK, and I thought, okay, I want an Ivy League MBA, but I'll only apply to Wharton and see if I get in. And you're right, Smriti. I think what it taught me is to think the right way, and that was one of the things which Barbara Kraft, who was our admissions officer, told me when I was interviewing for the Wharton. For getting into the Wharton exec course, she said that the one thing that this will teach you is it will equip you to think correctly. It's all about asking the right questions, knowing where the pain points are, knowing where the threats to your business is coming from, knowing where the opportunities are. And you don't have all the information. So when we make decisions today, or when we are going up in front of the CEO or the board asking for money and everything, it's not like we have every single data point that you would need, but you should have enough to know how to connect the dots. And that's what I think Wharton teaches you. There are fantastic professors. I've met some of the smartest and nicest people there. And obviously, the network, I think, is very helpful, whether you are going into a conventional job or entrepreneurship. It pays to have that brand name on your resume. No questions.
I second that. The network we get to build here at Wharton is definitely my place to go for any challenges and questions, be it personal or professional or entrepreneurial. Besides, definitely they are my biggest cheerleaders for any milestones that I aim for. And then originally, why I decided, I was working at Intel for almost 10, 12 years, around when I applied for my executive MBA from the Wharton School here in San Francisco. My main motivation was, coming out of an engineering background, I wanted to expand my horizons, and through Wharton, I was able to learn all the other functions that go into a successful business, such as finance, strategy, marketing. I also did a lot of entrepreneurial courses during my MBA at Wharton. So it gives you that framework that you can keep as your foundation to how to think systematically about an idea, and then to plan yourself how do you want to carry it forward. What are the various alternates and options that you have in there? So definitely helped me think more broadly and more systematically, and definitely the brand name and the network goes a long way. So I second that, the best investment of my life.
I will also say that it was a really great investment and decision to go back to business school. So my career journey has been very, I would say, diverse. Out of undergrad, I ended up going into consulting for a couple of years, so mainly working for financial services and tech clients in the Bay Area. And then I ended up doing a nonprofit consulting project with Oxfam in Tanzania, and I loved it. So I actually spent 2 years before business school working on HIV health financing in Africa. So I was traveling between New York City and Africa about 50% of the time. And so it had been a very big career pivot that I had done. And then I realized that I was ready to travel a little bit less and kind of go back to the private sector, but I didn't know what I wanted to do next. So I think the opportunity to go back to business school and really learn about what skills there are to be successful in the private sector was really important to me. And some of the classes I took around entrepreneurship and also marketing and operations was really, really helpful to me in the next phase of my career. So before I started my company, I was working in product management for the last 5 years. So I think that having an opportunity to have really amazing business leaders even come into the classroom and do case studies with us and our classmates, and really discuss why they made certain decisions for their companies really helped me, I think, kind of understand the pros and cons of pursuing different strategies. And it was, I mean, like there were some really amazing people that I strongly remember. Like I remember the founder of Home Depot came in to speak with us, or a woman who founded a startup to do like turn like cash registers into tablets came in and like shared her experience. And I think that those speakers just really influenced me to think about, okay, well, what are the skills that I would need to be successful kind of long term in my career? And also, if I wanted to start my own business someday, like what are the skills that I need? And it helped me, you know, get into product management where I built a lot of those skills. And now I feel a lot more confident running my own business and knowing how to build a product and working with the teams that can really bring a product to market and sell it. So like I think the other two in the panel said, I think Wharton's been a really amazing experience. And I'm excited to meet both of them too, because we know we're constantly expanding like the network, and people are really open when you reach out and like need help or advice. And so I think that there's just, you know, a lot of really great opportunities for folks that are considering business school someday.
Right. And so it seems like all three of you spoke definitely about like the mentorship and the network aspect of higher education, specifically like Wharton's network with MBAs, but then also about the fact that like, you know, even though some entrepreneurs may say you can learn everything like through self-teaching instead of going to traditional school, school teaches you, you know, like the skill sets you would need as opposed to just like pieces of knowledge you can just acquire, you know, like via the internet. So, based on your answers, actually, my next question would be, did going to Wharton, your time like in your MBA program, or just anything you've done since then in your like professional careers, sort of help you develop a plan for your exit opportunities, like once you enter the entrepreneurship space? So could you talk a bit about what some, you know, common exit opportunities are, and then whether or not you just think anyone entering entrepreneurship should, you know, have the skills to be able to like create premeditated like plans, like plan B, plan C, plan D in case like something doesn't work out?
I'm interested in how some of the folks that are working at corporate will think about entrepreneurs and their exit opportunities. I can chime in on like how I'm currently thinking about it. So I think, I mean, the dream for most entrepreneurs, especially that are starting venture-backed companies, is that you make, you know, a long-term legacy company and it goes public and you can spend the rest of your life working and growing on it. So, you know, that's really what we're shooting for right now, is like, how do we build a business that, you know, hopefully outlasts us and are able to like really grow other folks that are on our team and also just like in our communities to be successful at building mobile applications long term. I think realistically, you know, you hear a lot of statistics like 9 out of 10 startups fail, things like that. So you also have to think about, okay, what happens if that doesn't, you know, that outcome doesn't happen. And so I think some of the other exit opportunities are one, a lot of companies get acquired, right? So a lot of startup companies are innovating in these new spaces. Like we are exploring a lot of like AI technologies and how we can utilize them to like help people build mobile applications and design them and generate code faster, right? And so there might be opportunities from like an acquisition perspective, especially when larger companies are also looking into this space. And then I think the last piece is, can you, you know, like if you do have to shut down your company, can you utilize like the skills that you learned in your entrepreneurship journey in your future career? So how do you talk about the experiences that you had? Like I said, I think I've had a lot of experience in product management, but I've learned a lot about sales and marketing and recruiting and fundraising, and all of these skills I think are really applicable to other business you know, business careers in the future. So I think there's definitely exit opportunities, and I think people like respect entrepreneurs, like that you're willing to take a risk. And then if you can show that, you know, in the years that you worked on your company, these were the milestones that you achieved, I think that there's a lot of opportunities, whether or not your company is successful long term.
Yeah, it also depends on the type of the product or the business you're in. Like not everybody needs to have an exit like an upfront. While Sonka described, you could go public or get acquired or the other possibilities. But beginning with the end in mind is in general a good thing to do. So I would say having some idea of whether or not to exit is good, but like having a solid vision of where you want to take your business is more important in my mind than spending a lot of energy on like having a solid exit plan. Sort of.
Right, that definitely makes sense. Right, like you don't want to sort of assume you're gonna fail, right? And then specifically, I wanted to tailor this question to Nandini when you talk about your work with strategy. So when you're looking to advise a company or to advise your own company on like some new product they're trying to create, do you like to have different strategies you create? Is it worth your time to invest the resources in really like envisioning how different strategies could happen? Or do you sort of pick one strategy that you really think is going to be the best and like keep the exit opportunities in the form of other strategies kind of like in your back pocket?
So I think what we do is a combination of both. So if it is a new product, typically I can talk about what Hitachi does. If it's a new product, we tend to go to market through partners first instead of engaging our direct sales force. Because if it is a new market, again, instead of investing and building an office, we may go in through partners, see how successful it is, and then gradually invest our own Salesforce, recruit people, etc. What that gives you is it helps you expand the ecosystem beyond your current employees, etc. Because the partners will bring a lot of value. They can give a lot of inputs. They're the ones talking to the customers and feeding it back to us, and we can take that to the product management and say that, okay, these are the things you need to change. These are the features you need to build. These are the value props the customers are looking for. So that is one way of reducing the risk that you're taking, whether it's a new product or entering a new market. I don't know if it is possible to do that if you're a startup because you're kind of on your own, but I think that's one of the advantages of working under the umbrella of a bigger company because you have an existing partner network. For example, Sonka, you were in AWS. AWS has a huge partner network. We are one of the partners, in fact. Hitachi also has it. We work with independent software vendors like Infosys, Cognizant. We work with all sorts of companies across the world. So the partners provide a huge buffer to us. We also have things like strategic alliances. So it could be that what the customer wants is one big solution, and we may not be building every part of it. We could be building one part of the product and then adding it to the partners or the partners, products, etc., to build something. Sometimes we also go out and have alliances with even hyperscalers like AWS and Google, where we are combining maybe their compute with our storage to create a hybrid cloud solution. So those are, I won't call them exit, I would call them more like risk mitigation strategies, so that as you're going out and you're taking a risk, whether it's with a new product or a new market, you kind of hedge your bets a little bit so that you can explore the market without exposing yourself too much. And to your earlier question, Smriti, I think, obviously you don't have to go to a business school to become a great entrepreneur, Mark Zuckerberg, but that doesn't mean you can't learn from business school because let's face it, not everybody can be a Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or, one of them. So I think it does help. And even in Wharton, in our batch, there were quite a few people who were entrepreneurs and, they were still doing the MBA because they were getting some value out of it. So I think, you can't go wrong with it. That would be my point.
I definitely agree. I think that for sure, at least in my experience with undergrad, which I'm sure is vastly different than the MBA program, the skills that I've learned so far have just been super useful, and I feel like they'll definitely be like in use within every aspect of my career, whether it's like corporate or if it goes to entrepreneurship. And so this next question, it's definitely something I personally want to know, but also like I'm sure a lot of our audience members are curious. How would each of you characterize the entrepreneurship sort of mentality? And then also this mentality, whether you learned about it like through school or just sort of like perfected it through school or through your professional careers, how would you say you've been able to sort of sustain the mentality, both in your private ventures, but then also like as part of a larger organization? Are there any differences, or do you feel like it's pretty much the same?
So I can start. I would say that the entrepreneurship mentality for me is a combination of strategy, but also operations. So, from a strategy perspective, I think people who have an entrepreneurship mentality, whether they're working in a startup or at a larger company, are very intellectually curious. So, they always want to know why. They want to understand, why are things done this way today? Could things be better? What do the customers really want? Are their needs being met? So having that constant curiosity, I think, is a huge part of the entrepreneurship mentality, and that can help you figure out like what you can do to improve the current processes or really solve your customers' problems. And then I think the other piece about having the entrepreneurship mentality is the execution piece or the operational piece. So I think real entrepreneurs are the people in organizations that roll up their sleeves and actually get things done. So at a smaller startup like mine, we have very, very few people. So we're all wearing multiple hats. We all, have the same goals, and we all take turns doing different jobs just because we need to hit certain targets, certain goals. So we only hire people on our team or ask people to join us that we know can like roll up their sleeves and get stuff done. Because it's such a small organization that it's really, there can't be any slack, there can't be any dead weight. So I think even at larger organizations, people that know how to get stuff done within that organization really are valued, because they are the ones that not just have like a vision of how a company should work with their customers, but are actually the ones that are running around making sure that vision comes to life.
Yeah, totally. So I describe entrepreneurship mentality as like the what, why, and then how. So what needs to be done, why, what is the way it is done today, how do you solve that pain differently, and what are the alternatives? And then try and error out and iterate and get better at it. So it's basically the attitude of like the hustle of being like a go-getter, and like literally not taking no for an answer easily. That's basically the gist for me. And for even in a big organization, if you have that sort of a mentality of the entrepreneurship's blood or whatever, you don't box yourself into a role description. You always tend to be the one who's going above and beyond and driving the business, no matter whether it is your own or it is in the organization. And like I was telling you guys earlier, like I think of Thunderbolt at Intel as my first business and Decilia as my second business. So it's pretty much that same hustling spirit and the go-getter attitude that you take with you everywhere.
So I would just combine what Sonka and Vinita said. It's intellectual curiosity, which drives the strategy part, and the hustle, which drives the ops part. So you have to have that intellectual curiosity to think, okay, what can be done differently? That's your innovative mindset, etc. But also having the objective outlook to understand that, okay, can we really do this? How long will it take us? How will this thing scale? How much investment would be needed? And having an understanding of the markers along the road. I always talk about that it can be a 3-year journey, it can be a 5-year journey. You need to have KPIs and metrics that tells you whether you're going in the right direction or whether you need to course correct, because without those you can be going in the wrong direction and keep on going till it is too late. So having that objectivity, having that ability to take a step back and be be honest with yourself. Is this working or not? Is this going in the right direction or not? I think what happens in a big company like Hitachi is, because we have to, even if it is internal, we have to keep on reporting to whether it's the board or the CEO, giving them quarterly updates as to how things are going. That forces us to have that kind of discipline and having that view that, okay, is this going in the right direction or not? I think if you're running your own company, you have to kind of impose it on yourself, because you're answerable at the end of the day to yourself and your investors. So definitely having that grit, having the hustle, along with the combination of intellectual curiosity.
Amazing. I love the way you phrase that, Nandini. And then also for Vinita, to sort of use your model of like what, why, and how, This brings me to the last question I have before we turn it over to the audience if they have any questions. So the question would be, what has been your most rewarding experience just being an entrepreneur or working with the entrepreneurial mentality thus far in your career? Why? And then how do you see this sort of experience impacting you as you move forward?
So it has been the most humbling experience, I would say, so far, because the biggest reward has been like the opportunity to work and engage with like so many of the other motivated people who have various backgrounds. They are entrepreneurs trying to do different things. These are the people who are also either on their own or they're either on their own entrepreneurial journey or basically working somewhere but have the same the spirit that helps brainstorm with me, bounce off the ideas and help create the strategy. I often end up in this process, in this journey we are on, finding other partners who we can collaborate with, and think win-win and how we can drive each other forward. That has been the most rewarding experience for me, I would say.
So for me, I would say the most rewarding experience on this journey has been working with our customers to build their mobile applications and watching them launch in the market. And I think the reason it's so rewarding is that it shows that, our tool is working for our customers and our customers are able to build the mobile apps that they've been dreaming about, and generate revenue from what they're building. So I think, it kind of brings our team together to be able to talk about okay, these apps have launched this week from these customers and really look at these examples. I think that for why it's such a huge motivator is I think a lot of, what motivates me in life is trying to see how I can help others and really, motivate and improve the lives of other people. So being able to build a platform that enables other folks to be able to bring their visions to life is really exciting for me personally. And then from a how perspective, I think that as an early stage startup, we are constantly iterating and trying to figure out improvements to our product, figuring out improvements to our go-to-market strategy, how we can serve people better. So I think that something that is, exciting to me as being part of the journey is continuing to have folks test our product and give us feedback and help us learn and grow. And so, before you even wrap up here, I would like to invite anyone who's here, if they're interested in beta testing our product, they're welcome to be part of our journey. And if they go to alta.so and sign up today, I'll send them an email with a way to beta test our product and really, help us kind of improve as a company over the long term as well.
I think from the strategy perspective, the biggest reward is the ability to create long-term shareholder value. Because I think if you're working for a public company, that's the biggest responsibility you have. Obviously, the bulk of the responsibility rests with the CEO and the board because they have that fiduciary agency, if you will. But being in strategy, it gives you access to the C-suite because you're constantly working with them, having benefiting from their mentorship to some extent because they're giving you, very unfiltered feedback almost in some of the meetings that we have, which is great. I mean, it kind of challenges you, it forces you to think differently, and the other part of this is it gives me an insight into the different parts of the company. If I were probably only doing finance or only product, I probably would not have that much of an idea of what's going on everywhere else. So it may not be in depth and everything, but if you're doing strategy, you end up working cross-functionally with different parts of the company, which in itself is hugely rewarding because it exponentially expands your network within the company and you get to understand what's going on pretty quickly.
Right. The fiduciary duty, it's really interesting that you mentioned that. Taking a class actually at the moment on shareholder activism, and we definitely talk about the role of entrepreneurship within shareholders and like their responsibility and like duty to sort of intervene when companies need to course correct, as you mentioned earlier. Amazing. So now I know we're at 1 minute over, but I wanted to see if anyone in the audience has any questions. So if you do have any questions, feel free to write in the comments chat, which is going to be located on the right sidebar of your screen. If not, I do know that all three of our panelists will actually be hosting sessions later today, so later on in the conference, where you can sort of individually meet with them and get mentorship and ask any questions you may have if you're feeling a bit shy. So, with that, I'd like to say thank you so much, Nandini, Vinita, and Sanka, for taking the time to be here with us today. Thank you to the audience and everyone who's organizing the Global Game Changers Summit. It's such a wonderful opportunity to be able to help like children in need who want to learn more about entrepreneurship and finance, which is the mission behind this conference. And then also, Sanka sort of like got to it before I could, but feel free to please like connect with all of our panelists and myself via social media. And so Sanka, could you please repeat? I believe you said the link is alta.so if people want to beta test your product.
Yes, that's correct.
Amazing. So please like head on over there. I will myself. And I think that's it for our panel. So again, thank you so much. Any parting words that you would like to give, or perhaps sort of advice for anyone dreaming of entering entrepreneurship?
I would say get started today. Think about what baby step you can take today towards realizing your idea, and each day keep stacking up those baby steps.
Yeah, now is a good time to start if you want to do it.
I was going to say the same. Just take the plunge. Do something small that gets you closer to your goal.
Exactly. Have that hustle mentality as we spoke about. Amazing. So thank you all so much. I will turn it now back to our moderators, Caroline and Stephen, I believe.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.